my parents always encouraged me. They said, be the change that you want to see. Like if you've got an opinion, if you've got something you want to do it. Because, especially when it comes to policy and whatnot, if you don't say something, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, when that policy becomes law, when it's legislated, you've lost your opportunity, you've lost your window. So I've kind of always had that mindset.
The Growing the Future podcast is brought to you by Aberhart Ag Solutions. Join us as we talk to top entrepreneurs in the agricultural space about their methods of obtaining success in their endeavors. And now, your host, Dan Aberhart.
I am super stoked to have a very young, exciting, upcoming individual in the agricultural space with me today on the show. A young farmer by the name of Jake Ayer. How are you doing there today, Jake?
Good, Dan the man. What's happening with you?
Oh, I'm just keeping it real in the agricultural hood. Been working on lots of crazy stuff and exciting times, and I'm super stoked for our conversation today. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, me as well. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So we're going to get into you and your background and your story, but I've laid it out for really easy listening and also for us to keep track of where we're going with 3 easy sections today, Jake. I've given them all titles. I might give you a bit of a hint where we're going to take it. So the first place we're going to go is entitled The Prodigal Son. The Prodigal Son. Boom. Okay. You get where I'm going with that? And the second part is going to be How the Carbon Tax Launched My Career into Politics by Jake Ayer.
Ooh.
Boom. And the third section, see where we're going with this? It's going to be called The Hunger Games. And the actual, movie title behind The Hunger Games is going to be Trumping Trudeau. It's going to be about some politics and farming and stuff like that. So, Jake, you're a young man, but you got a long storied history in agriculture with your family. You farm with your dad and your mom and your sister out at Minto there. But you have a history going all the way back to the 1400s. Tell us about who you are and the history of the farm a little bit.
Yeah, so like you said, we've been farming. The Ayers, of course, have been farming for generations. We did our family tree 10 years ago. And from as far back as we kind of lost track. 1400s, it got kind of muddy. I guess they didn't keep as good of records back then or something. But as far back that we could trace the Ayers as being farmers in the southwest of England, the county Devonshire. Dan, I don't know if you've been to Devonshire.
Have not. Read about it in storybooks, though.
It's supposedly one of the most beautiful counties. It's right on the southwest. It's very well known for its agriculture and for a travel destination because it's right on the coast. Has the best surfing beaches in the United Kingdom. So I literally we moved from a farm. We were a livestock, sheep, and grain operation in England. And I moved from a farm where you literally went up the top of the lane, and then you went down a hill, up another hill, and boom, there's the ocean. And
you came to Canada in 2002, you said? How old
2002, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was 6 when I came.
Okay, so you have some memories.
So I do remember, and we go back often because all of my family's there. I have a sister who just had a daughter. So I have a niece. We unfortunately haven't been able to go and see them because of COVID. That was the plan. We were going to go fly over there. But yeah, so all my family is actually in the United Kingdom. I have a cousin who's there in the military. They're stationed in Canada right now. But other than that, yeah, I grew up with all my family in England, and we go back there.
So why is it that you guys emigrated? What was the impetus there?
See, I always ask mom and dad, and the answer I typically get is opportunity. Because I was 6. I had no say in the matter. They tell the story. They tell the story of apparently the day we were going, I had my suitcase and I had a little temper tantrum, said, I'm not going. And I, stormed back off into the house and was, adamant that I'm staying here. But
typical Englishman.
That's probably more the redhead gene, Dan, than anything.
The ginger.
The temper.
Well, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
We'll get into the ginger gene.
Yeah. So, like they say, opportunity, and BSE hit in England. I think that was, what was that? 2001. Real bad disaster in the cattle industry in the United Kingdom. Our farm wasn't directly affected, but lots of the surrounding farms were. It took a lot of toll mentally on the whole industry and really depressed cattle prices. So it was tough sledding. So I think that was kind of a factor. And Dad also talks about he came to Canada when he was 17, went to Southern Ontario of all places. He had a great uncle out there, and he just loved it. He wanted to live that, I guess, almost like the pioneer dream, get a piece of land and wide open space, try and make a go of it.
I think that's what makes everybody here so great. I mean, we're all from that background one way or another, but it's amazing that you go so far back in history. But for yourself, you were telling me that farming wasn't always the absolute clear path, but you found out through your various endeavors that it's a great life.
So I went to Boise, graduated from there, and the plan was to go to university because Mom said to me, that was Mom's like adamant thing was you need an education, no matter what you want to do. She said, I don't care if it's, underwater basket weaving. She didn't say those exact words, but she was kind of, that was her thing. This is a mom thing. She's like, well, in case something changes.
Right.
So she said, go to college or university, get like trade. She wasn't hung up on, university or college. It was just do something post-secondary. So I went to University of Manitoba. Not really a hot clue what I wanted to do. Kind of business, marketing, agriculture was kind of in the mix, but I was like, I don't know, I want to kind of see what's around and figure it out. And so funny enough, I went to university and geez, man, I kept hanging out with all these rural kids and all these farm kids. I kind of seemed to gravitate to, it was almost like growing up on a farm, you had something in common. I don't know. It was kind of strange. It was like, you can meet a farmer from Swan River and you're like, oh, like you guys drive tractors too?
You didn't relate to the inner city kids quite the same?
Honestly, at first I found it tough, like, because it's different environment, right? Like, you say the environment you grow up in, it's not your fault. That's what right? So it was tough at first to relate to, people who grew up in Winnipeg because it's still prairie, but it's a different mindset, So anyways, I went there, ended up hanging out with the farm kids and these great Aggies. And I kind of thought, like, these are some pretty cool cats. And I remember sitting there one night and someone had a test, like they'd got marked and got back and sitting there. And I kind of looked at it, I went, what's that? And then, that was my test from last week here. I just looked at it. I'm like flipping through. I'm like, I know that one. Oh yeah, I know that. Oh, this is kind of interesting. And then they're looking at me like, did you just call a test interesting? So from that point, I was kind of like, maybe I should probably be studying this if I'm interested in it and perhaps have a bit of background knowledge. So that was kind of when the light bulb went on. As my mom likes to say, I like to do everything the hard way. I have to figure it out for myself. So that was me figuring out for myself when I'm pretty sure my mom told me, she's like, yeah, you'll probably end up in agriculture. And I'm like, yeah. So yeah, anyway, so that's how I studied it. Graduated, diploma class of 2017. Nice. Co-valedictorian. So it was actually two gingers were the valedictorians.
Wow.
Gingers
are not on the decline. They are on the rise in some sectors.
I think we had 6 gingers in the class of 78. So like they say it's a 1% thing, but I don't know. Those skew the stats.
I thought they were going extinct, but I got like 3.5 of them.
Apparently not. We're still thriving. So anyway, so I graduated there and kind of worked around for a bit, and I woke up one day and realized that I always helped out in the farm in summers and stuff. But I woke up one day and I realized like I miss being on the farm. I miss working with the land, the diverse job we do. I miss the people. So, so I came back, and now I farm and work on our family business, rent some land of my own, and just kind of doing my thing here.
Absolutely. No, that's really cool. So tell us a little bit about your farm and working with your dad and the businesses that you have and how you guys work together.
Yeah, so we are a seed growers. So predominantly the crops that we grow, so like wheat, barley, oats, soybeans, they're pedigreed, so they're for seed production. We also grow stuff like corn, canola, and like the conventional soybeans for cash crops. We have a seed plant on site with a color sorter. So typically the crops that we grow, we're a registered seed establishment. We process them on site, and then we sell them to farmers in the surrounding area. So we sell them out of our yard. We also sell pedigreed seed for like Pioneer. We sell fertilizer, inoculants, biologicals, all that fun snake oil stuff.
The hizzle jizzle juice, I love it.
And we do some custom work too, like we do custom planting, custom seeding, custom spraying, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's never a dull moment here. There's always something going on. Me, dad, the family, and we have one full-time staff, and we rely on some seasonal help, or someone who can give us 2-3 days a week during the busy times.
What is it that you really like doing on the farm right now? Like, you've got all these different jobs. You can be selling, you can be spraying, you can be sorting seed. What do you like to do?
Let's think about that. I have this fantastic sprayer that some guy sold me a few years ago. I don't know what he's doing these. Don't know what he's doing these days. I hear he's doing a podcast, I guess. But
this is the first equipment salesman I've ever heard spoke of highly in the agriculture community directly from a farmer. This is unprecedented. We got to get this on the internet.
Yeah, I don't know. I think his name was like Dan or something.
That guy with the German name, strong like boar.
And his shoes were just so he must have just dumped a liter of oil on them. I'm thinking when I was they were so shiny, those salesman shoes.
Part of the tricks of the trade. Hey, will you shiny John Deere? I'm not going to break your shoes, man. That's awesome. So I'm still using that. That's cool.
Yeah, no, we actually, one of the big things we did on our farm this year was we retrofitted that with no free ads, JD Link. So it's really good for record keeping. So any application that we do with the sprayer, it sends it to the cloud, and then they have their platform, and it gives you exact gallons applied, the speed, size of the fields, and it's all like on your dashboard and stuff. So it's really good for us to see, like, if we're experimenting, because we put our nitrogen down in form of 28 with the sprayer. So I mean, some spots, I had a little bit left in the tank. I'm like, I'll put down a bit more nitrogen here, and we'll see how that translates. So it's cool because we can see, like, that 100-foot strip that's in the back corner that Jake think, they'll do something. Well, we'll see come harvest time, because we have yield mapping. So that's I enjoy doing that. I
remember when that came out in the early 2000s. I was trying to place exactly what year, but at the time, I think they had actually come out with a program for IP, which tracked, which was meant to sort of track all your production to the end user, but that was way too early on the curve. But it's good to see. I always thought this stuff had to be automated before it'd be any use.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, I think that's what our consumers demanding is they want that traceability. So I think programs like this and stuff like this moving forward, it's going to become the industry standard. I think it's going to get to the point where upon point of sale, you're going to have a record of seeding, crop protection applications, fertilizing. Like, it's going to be a requirement, I think. And I don't know, I can't put a timestamp on it, but I think I'll definitely see it in my lifetime for sure.
Consumers are demanding.
I think they want to know who's behind their food. I think the conversation's changed now from, I want food to what's the story behind my food. There's a quote somewhere that they want to feel good about their food. They want to know where it comes from and who produced it. And I think we're seeing that more and more, especially in ag. So
love it. Okay, well, that kind of wraps up the prodigal son section. So we're about a third of the way through here. You're doing great. Now, let's circle back to your last year of U of M, where you're just ripping it up with everybody that was there to learn. And you got into a debate about the carbon tax, which is obviously a heated topic for everybody in Western Canada, especially agriculture. And it kind of helped launch your career into politics now, where you're representing farmers. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So back when I was still in school, Keystone Ag Producers, who's our farm lobby group in Manitoba, came to our classroom and they kind of gave us this spiel of who they were, what they did, who they represented, that kind of stuff. And they talked about their policy work and what they do, and, you know, meeting with governments and advocacy, policy, that kind of stuff. They invited us to their annual meeting, which had kind of been going on with the diploma program for a few years. Invited us to their annual meeting and said, bring a resolution with you guys. Like, you know, and so we kind of like, resolution, like what's, and so they went, worked through us, and they kind of said, okay, like, what are some policy issues, or what are some things going on, you know, say directly off your farm that affect your farm? That's how they kind of explained it. So, you know, it's not the fact that, you know, the back 40, it's got a few ruts from that night when Dad went out there in the pickup truck. It was a little wet, and yeah, there seems to be a little bit of standing water there. And, you know, ever since that night, field hasn't been right. Like, it's not something like that. It's in the sense of, you know, like a government policy or something like that. So at the time, this was when the carbon tax was just coming out, where it was like, boom, everyone was talking about it in agriculture. So this is something our class came up with, and drafted a resolution. And the gist of it basically was that, you know, moving forward, we've identified issues like public trust. People want to know about their food. We want to be part of that conversation. We feel that, you know, we want to work with governments and industry on this issue. We don't want to, you know, be seen as being stubborn. We want to be progressive. We want to be ahead of the curve. And isn't it better to be at that table discussing rather than, you know, standing one way or another and refusing? So that was the gist of it. So we drafted that. I got voluntold to speak to it.
Popular guy.
Which back to I know I bring up gingers a lot, but like I said, it was 3 gingers who got voluntold to speak to this. Which, what are the odds? They must have just not liked us.
Natural selection that you're outspoken, or did you become outspoken because you're always, you know, being singled out as a ginger? Like, how does that work?
I think it's the Scottish blood, whatever's left of that running through my veins, that, you know, the Braveheart running through the hills, Scotland, higher Scotland. It's that.
Wow. You really,
the action
you see yourself as Mel Gibson, like in your mind, running over the hills in a kilt?
I was going to say, in that movie, I don't know if I'd say I'm Mel Gibson now. He's been getting quite a bit of bad press. So, so presented, we went to the annual meeting, and we had a district support. So they moved it. So it was governance. It was you know, procedural, and we prepared, we spoke, and there was obviously quite a bit of debate, and that was interesting to see, because I'd never seen that before. In regards to policy or ag policy, I'd never seen a debate going back and forth, and it went on for quite some time. And we gave our initial piece, and we were kind of sitting there because it was our first experience, and we were sitting there thinking, like, you know, are we allowed to speak again? Like, what's the? And I remember I looked over at our dean, and she went, "Yeah, get up there, guys! Like, this is you. This is your piece, right? Like, yeah. You know, it's better to take your thoughts, express them, rather than sit there and think, oh, I woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?" So we were about to get up, and then someone got up, and in their speech, they said, you know, I'm doing this for the young people, and pointed at us. And it was a complete opposite, like, lost the point, nothing to do with what we'd said. And we're like, that's putting words in our mouth. So we we got up and we rebutted and whatnot. And in the end, the policy passed. So that was a really cool experience to be a part of. And that's what got me interested in ag policy and ag politics, was being a part of that process. I said to you before, like, my parents always encouraged me. They said, be the change that you want to see. Like, if you've got an opinion, if you've got something you want to do it. Because, especially when it comes to policy and whatnot, if you don't say something, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, when that policy becomes law, when it's legislated, you've lost your opportunity, you've lost your window. So I've kind of always had that mindset. And then I kind of went and worked around for a bit, still kind of kept in touch with the group. And eventually I came back. I was on our district board. Then I sat on the board of directors representing our district. And then just this past February, I was elected to vice president. And I co-chair our Manitoba Young Farmer program.
Well, I want to circle back to speaking out. That's an important point. And I'm sure there's lots of people listening that are thinking, like, maybe they have something they want to speak out about, because everybody feels passionate about topics. Is that something that you really had to work at, or you're kind of a natural at and you're just getting better at? Or what would you just say to somebody who wants to speak out but finds it difficult?
I would say plan out what you're going to say. Do your research first, like educate yourself. Like, I'm always challenging myself to learn about a subject I don't understand or further my knowledge. So I'm reading, trying to expand my horizons. And I like to read, try and find both sides before I myself form my opinion on something. But I would say read, plan out what you're going to say. I would say one of the biggest mistakes people make, if it's in a medium where you're speaking, find what works best for you. Some people, like when they're speaking, I know for me, I hate reading word for word. Like, if I'm going to say something, I can't go to that piece of paper. When I speak, I jot the main points down and I kind of go from there. But I guess the big thing is get involved, whether it's with a farm group, whether it's 4-H, whether it's your town council, whatever the medium is, just get yourself involved. Try something new, push yourself. If you go into those environments, you're going to get an opportunity one way or another, right? So I say that's the first step, is to get involved, because you never know what opportunities are going to arise.
Well, hey, that'd be awesome if somebody heard this and wanted to take up arms about something that they were passionate about to make a difference in the world. And good on you. It takes courage and talent to do that. So, and that's what happens literally. That situation you were illustrating is, if you're not going to get up and speak, somebody's going to speak for you that may not represent your views at all. So congratulations on that. So moving to the third part, we were joking about Keystone Agricultural Producers sort of being like the Hunger Games with 12 districts, and you're in District 1, a lot like Katniss, just, different sex and various other differences, which I would probably not pertinent to the conversation to illustrate today. And I've got Trumping Trudeau in there because this is about politics. But tell us about the Keystone Agricultural Producers, your role there, and what you guys are working on. And you were just making a speech at the House of Commons, and you're really using your voice for some good with this in this organization. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, so Keystone Ag Producers is one of the, if not the largest producer, policy lobby group in Manitoba. So they represent a variety of different farmers in Manitoba. So it's grain farmers, it's like sheep producers. We have like vegetable growers, fruit, like there's a whole big list. We are a producer funded and producer oriented and producer directed organization. So whatever policy producers come forward with, and once it's debated and passed, goes to the organization, and it kind of goes from there.
Take me inside that board meeting that you guys have every couple of months. What does that look like to attend one, and what kind of discussions do you have there?
Well, I mean, definitely scary for me, my first one. It's like I'm a young guy. There's no hiding that. And just the quality of people in the organization, it just astounds me. Like, we've got people who have been leaders in their field. They've been national leaders, and they all care. Like, they're there to truly help our industry. They're encouraging. They've been great to me, really encouraging of young people. They want more youth involvement. It's interesting to go there, and the quality of discussions, like it's, pertinent issues and, all your standard government stuff and approving and yes, no, hand up, down, that kind of stuff. But it's great to go there and the discussions and the work that they do. And I'm excited to work and continue to work with the organization. I think it's a great group, and they really do have the best interests of Manitoba farmers and agriculture at heart.
So what are some of the things that you're most proud of having worked with them or the organization has done? And like, what are you guys working on now?
So one of the kind of cool things is Manitoba. I don't know why Manitoba, because it's awesome, right, Dan? Manitoba is awesome.
Number one, except when I'm in Saskatchewan, then Saskatchewan's number. No, I love them both. It's cool. I love them both.
Manitoba actually has the highest percentage of young farmers. So yeah, young farmer as defined by Stats Canada is farmer under the age of 40.
That's interesting.
So they're seeing this resurgence of young farmers in Manitoba. And kind of one of the things I noticed is we have subcommittees that deal with, meet on different issues. So like grains, oilseeds, pulses, transportation committee, livestock committee, environment committee, taxation committee. Probably going to miss a couple, so I'm just going to go with those 5. and then in 2019, we formed a young farmer committee. Our young farmer policy committee got the opportunity to meet with Federal Minister Bibeau, so the Federal Ag Minister. So we got, I can't remember how long the meeting with her, but that was an awesome experience to be a part of that group, and then to have that group go and do something, to meet with the Federal Ag Minister in our country. And we received lots of positive feedback on that. So that's probably been 2 of the most cool things I've been a part of so far.
That is awesome. I was just thinking as you're talking, your acceleration in your life, in your career, just by virtue of hanging out with all these people, being surrounded by, that kind of mentality is a really good opportunity. And I guess that would be a pretty good opportunity for anybody that wants to be a part of a board on almost any level. It's great to be surrounded by really passionate people that are intelligent leaders and caring and everything. Speaking of rural internet, I don't know if that was the cause of it, but you were recently trying to connect with, you should have been talking about rural internet access because So I was asked to present to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Ag, which I don't get nervous for a lot of things. I was pretty nervous for that. I'm like, this is the show, man. I'm Ballantyne's place on Game 7 of Stanley Cup Final here. Like I can hear the Winnipeg Whiteout is just. Yeah. So I'm going to go into this. It's virtual committee because obviously they're not sitting. And I'd written a submission and I was going to speak it because you have to, if you're speaking, you have to submit for translation reasons, right? So I composed a document. So they were doing a study on business management. So like insurance, so agri-insurance, agri-invest, agri-stability, agri-recovery, and agri-risk initiatives. So those are the 5 business management programs offered in Canada. So speaking on that, as a young person, it's like 5 minutes before I'm supposed to be on the call and my internet is still down. And I'm like, just losing it. I'm like, come on, this has to happen when I'm supposed to be. So my phone rings, no caller ID. I'm like, okay, this is someone from the government. Answer. They're like, is this Mr. Ayer? I'm like, yeah. Are you aware that you're supposed to be in a committee meeting right now? And I'm like, yeah. Just like holding it. And I'm like, my internet's crashed and I'm kind of panicking. So I'm trying to get this together. And then the lady's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, do you want a tech to call you? I'm like, sure. So the tech calls me and he's just like, hi, Mr. Ayer. I'm like, yeah. He's like, so you having internet problems? I'm like, oh. I'm like, I'm having internet problems 100%. And he laughs and he's like, I'm like, yeah, I've reset my router. I'm like, I'm literally just waiting for it to reboot. Boots,
he lets me in the meeting.
I feel for you.
And so you're like, oh, so all this roller coaster. I haven't even gotten into the meeting yet, Dan. So I get into the meeting. I had my attire on. I got a dashing sport coat and collared shirt on. So someone else, 2 individuals speak, and then okay, Mr. Chair says, Mr. Ayer, you're speaking. So time starts now. So you have 7 minutes. It's okay. I'm like, hello, start doing my thing. All of a sudden, so I'm wearing these headphones, and I hear in my headphones this quiet voice like, Mr. Ayer, Mr. Ayer. Mr. Ayer, stop speaking. And I'm like, so I stop. So a lot of the meeting, like it was in French, and like I can understand a bit enough to get by, and I knew that they're saying stop, so I stopped. And then their interaction, and then they say the translators can't hear what you're saying, and they're finding it hard because they're watching my mouth, right? They're finding it hard to translate, and they need you to adjust your microphone. And then, Mr. Ayer, your video's quit. Oh, Mr. Ayer, we can't. And I'm like, internet crashed again.
No way.
Again. So it stopped. And then I rebooted it. And in the end, I tethered off my phone to get the connection. So I tethered it, and then I got that up. And then they said, Mr. Ayer, you have 3 minutes. So my time got caught and I lost my place, and I'm like, and I put all this effort in, but it went in as a written submission. But it was just it was frustrating. I was like, man, I came here to talk about business risk management. And I got one question, from the NDP ag critic. And he's like, oh, I felt bad for you. He said, you were prepared and all this. And he said, that's not your fault, by the way. I'm like, okay, good. And then he asked me a question, and I said, yeah. I said, well, I was trying to elaborate that in my presentation, but internet kind of. And then they all laughed. I'm like, yeah, I should have been talking about rural internet. I should go to that committee. So,
well, that very event just speaks volumes about the nature of reality when it comes to our connection with the East, and it's unfortunate, but at least you're stepping up and having some conversations. So tell us, like, what were you sharing with the committee there, the House of Commons, and what were you hoping to achieve? I read your speech; it was awesome, by the way, and it's just such a shame that you didn't get the opportunity to articulate. Like in normal circumstances, I guess you would have physically been there in your suit and tie, and you could have seen what a nice young gentleman you are, and you could have talked about your family history and passed away, and could look them in the eye, like kind of like if you want to convince a jury or something. And unfortunately, we're all in this COVID situation, but you did the best you could. So, what were you trying to achieve there?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're looking for input on business risk management. And so I had a couple points, like Agri-Invest was one. Like it used to be, the portion was 3%, like the eligibility. So I'd said like 3%. That's something I could agree with. And then basically I told the story of like 2019, the harvest from hell, which for many producers across the Canadian prairies, when I say harvest from hell, they know exactly what I mean. And I talked about how on our farm we had all these accrued costs. So like drying our grain, putting on aeration fans. We put tracks on our combine, like we rented tracks, put them on our combine. We actually we rented another combine to finish. So we harvest with a neighbor farm about the same size. And we share labor resources just so it's efficient for both of us. We get harvest done as quick as possible. So we rented this combine, so we did dry grain, aeration fans, tough grain, crop that got left out in the field, using a propane torch to defrost our combine header. Like basically I talked about all these points and how it added up to be, Dad and I did some preliminary cost estimates. And here's the thing though, Dan, and you'll know, farmers are good people for the most part. Everyone I've met has been a great individual. And that mighty neighborly expression, everyone helped out everyone last year and, kind of said, oh, don't worry about it, or we'll sit down and square up later. That kind of mentality, which is still very true in agriculture. So there's a lot of trades of things and that kind of stuff. Or, we'll sit down later, figure it out. Well, To no avail. We have not sat down later and figured it out yet. So like some of these costs are, still hasn't been figured out, and we got to do that. But like I said, my point was we spent probably close to, if not, it's going to be more now, like 90 grand on just between the rentals, machinery, repairs, like basically additional costs to take off this harvest from hell. And my point was, if agri stability and agri recovery do not account for these costs, there needs to be some serious revisions and changes. Because in my mind, that weather event and the wet weather and then that snow, that 2.5 feet of snow that we had, caused a lot of costs and stress to people. And if our programming can't account for those costs, I'm like, well, it needs to be a revision. Like I said, I'm not asking for a government handout. I just want to be able to better guarantee, insure. If I have to pay more for more insurance, I am happy. I just want to be able to guarantee my insurance levels. So that's on my main piece was that, we had all these events happening and these programs are supposed to be a backstop for when circumstances beyond our control happen. And in my mind, they didn't. So that was my point.
What's wrong with the insurance right now?
Okay, well, a couple of points. Agri stability is very complex. Like, I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything. I struggle to wrap my head around it and like the reading it. And we've been to meetings with our accountants, and even they're kind of like, well, this says that, but this says this. And so maybe
it's $400 an hour for them to figure that out.
Yeah. So the complexity, and that was my other comment, was this program needs to be, simple, easier to understand. Because that's when you talk to people, those are the two things that come up. It's complex. I don't understand it. And it doesn't work for operations. Like I hear all the time people who have, say, grain farm and livestock, they're like, it doesn't work for me. It has never paid out. So why would I enroll in it? So I think the uptake isn't quite what it should be. So I see that as a problem. If you have a government program that's supposed to be the answer and people are like, no, that's the problem there, right? So it's complex. Costs are changing in agriculture. Nothing is cheap anymore. I'd love a new John Deere X9 combine. If someone wants to, that happens to.
Are you out there?
But the costs in agriculture, costs have risen. Like it's no longer. You hear stories of farmers. They took off a half section of flax in 1962. I just tried to put a year on it. And no, but I've heard stories like, I took off that half section of flax, and with the profit on that half section, I bought the combine that ran that. I'm like, that would be slick. But the cost of everything now, and the margins are tight. Ever since Dan left, machinery prices have just skyrocketed.
I saw the writing on the wall. It almost made me look smart, but it was probably not that plan. But yeah, now if you take off a crop, you can be proud if you make the payment. You don't go buy something. You're just like, I made my lease payment. We're in the game.
Yeah, it's at the point now. Everyone is leveraged, right? Like leveraged by their assets. It's not a realistic picture. It's like everyone is credit and going to the bank and loans and I feel like the climate has changed. So it's a different game. And the cost. Like my whole bottom line is just, if I have to pay more for more insurance, I'm happy. I just want to be able to get more insurance. That's my point.
Well, that's a good one. I think there could be good tools out there, and if they were simple and usable, then you could take some of the risk out of it for sure. So this is awesome, man. We covered a lot of ground. We could talk a lot longer, and maybe you could come on again, as you've covered some more political ground and had some more experiences. I think it's a really good conversation. Wrapping things up here, what's next for you in terms of agriculture, the farm, and working with Keystone Agricultural Producers and all that? What are your goals? What are you focused on?
Yeah, so I guess the farm, because it's been hot lately, it's looking like we're probably going to be putting on fungicide here on the weekend on our barley.
Yeah.
And then as far as Keystone, we have our advisory council. So that's a summer policy session. We're just kind of working on finalizing the date, looking like end of July. So that's going to be on Zoom because obviously we're still under guidelines and restrictions for amount of people in a room, that kind of thing. So there's that. So that's our policy session. And as well, I forgot to tell you about this in my pre-interview, but here's my plug. I'm also this year, I got the opportunity, and it's a charity that I really, believe in, and it's important to rural Canada is Stars Air Ambulance.
Nice. Love it.
So their big fundraising event is called Rescue on the Island. So I got the opportunity. I am going to be on the island. So I have to fundraise some money to get off the island. So hopefully there's enough people out there that maybe, I don't know, they don't have to like me. They just have to like Stars. They would maybe possibly be able to donate. I know this is a service like in my life. We haven't had to utilize it, but in agriculture, I'm sure Dan, you talk to anyone or you hear that word Stars, everyone knows what you mean, right? Like they know about the air ambulance. They have a family member. They've heard a story about how it's, truly benefited them. So I'm doing that charity event. Perhaps I can give you the link or something. There's a page where if people are able to donate, that's something I'm pretty excited about. So that's September 9th is that event.
Please do. And I'm sure that a lot of people will be coughing up some cash to save a ginger, given their relative rarity and the fact that they're going extinct. I mean, we can't afford to lose many more gingers. I mean, you gotta get out there and you gotta proliferate, young man. You can't hold those genes back. You gotta get procreating here.
You say that like that, Dad, but I'm worried. You're saying that people are gonna they can get rid of that guy. He can stay there.
He hasn't even had children yet. I mean, we're gonna bring this guy back. I mean, we were going to have a segment on farm dating, and I don't know if that has anything to do with internet connectivity, but I mean,
that's a whole nother. We could do a whole nother podcast on that one, Dan. It's a little different in the farm world than in downtown Toronto.
Do you have any stories about when you were like swiping right on potentially like a life mate, and then your internet died?
Internet died, yeah, mid texting of conversation, and it just gone. Yeah, I'm sure it was the internet and not the fact that this lady looked and saw the picture of a ginger and went, no. It wasn't the fact that it was an accident. It was. I'm saying it was the internet, 100%. It was her internet just crashed. So
I feel you, brother.
That's why
I feel you, brother. Every time I get ghosted, it's the internet.
Yeah, it's internet. Oh, yeah, her internet just must have been out for the past week. She just hasn't been able to talk. I'll send her a telegram.
Oh, another one loses connection. Damn, I thought we had such a great connection, and she lost her connection.
Oh, that's great, Dad.
We had a lot of fun at last Manitoba Ag Days, and we're gonna have a lot of fun at the next one, even if like we're socially distanced. I'm hoping it'll still happen, but we'll see. But
yeah, I really hope. I mean, I guess you guys will be the same, right? With depending on guidelines and what the plan is moving forward. But I really hope something happens with Ag Days. It's a fun time, great learning opportunity, and great networking opportunity to get to meet a lot of people from all over the world.
But I think your voice is going to ring through the halls of the decision makers in the years to come. And you're on a great path to be surrounded by such good people. So keep up the good work. I appreciate you coming on the show. Say hi to your dad for me. And I guess one last thing, you said per capita, we got the most young farmers. Did you know that we also in Manitoba have the most cottages per capita in the world?
No. I mean, we got a lot of beautiful lakes. That's
a
lot that I haven't even been to, because I know there's some up north that...
Yeah. You guys are out at the Lake of the Prairies, hey?
Yeah. Lake of the Prairies, Mississippi. That's kind of been... the winter stomping ground when we were kids growing up, flying down the ski hill. And of course, we met up with your brother and his wife a couple of times. And it's a great place. I love it up there. It's a great place. I still actually, when I'm not doing 10 million other things, I bartend a bit there in the winter too. It's just kind of some fun and something to do. And come Christmas time where I got a house full of family and maybe you need an escape.
Maybe.
I didn't say that. The bar's a good place to work.
Well, let's have a shot this winter if I don't see you before then.
Sure.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Take care, Jake. Keep it real.